If you're looking for your next role in product management, you already know that by now. Product sense interviews are going to play a big role in the process. So, this session is all about that. All the tips, the tricks, the approach, the know how, everything you need to know in order to nail the product sense interview and hopefully get the job. Our mentor for today is Alexander Razor, head of product at Glasses USA and product lead. Hello, hello, what's up?
Hi, Maria. Hi, everybody.
So happy to have you here with us, Alex. Today, we are going to talk about product sense. We're going to not just talk about product sense interviews, if I may give the audience some preview, because you're going to share with them something that goes way beyond the interviews and goes into the day to day, every day of a product manager.
Hopefully. Yeah, hopefully so.
I know you will, and I know everyone in the audience is going to get a lot of know how and tips and tricks from this session. So, what do you say? Shall we dive right in?
Let's do it.
Let's do that.
Wonderful. So, product manager interview mastery series. That sounds wonderful, like a computer game. So, what I want to do is let's start with an introduction. First of all, I've been an individual contributor or a product leader for the past 12 and some years. I'm currently working my fifth year at Glasses USA as head of product for a B2B2C business unit. That means I'm working with major US vision insurance companies and creating eyewear e-commerce applications for millions of insured Americans. And for the most part, I'm dead to Nevoin and I, husband to Yulia. I love running and I frequently travel for my job. That's part of the job. So maybe just start off with a very simple question for everybody who's here and everybody who's watching this. Do you find that in your day-to-day work, you focus as a product manager on execution more than on discovery? If the word discovery, whatever it may mean to you, do you focus more on execution than on discovery? Drop your answers in the chat and let's see how many people answer yes or no to that as we go through the lecture. Another question I have, right, is something that I've encountered at least, but I bet you have as well. Have you ever, as a product manager throughout your career, have been given a predetermined solution and said, hey, look, I need this by this deadline. It is what it is. Get this done, right? This is the solution. Just implement this. And it was a major part of your job. So again, have you ever been forced kind of to ship a preset solution, discouraged from exploring the problem? You're not thinking about the problem. You have to deliver the solution and do it on time. Yes or no to both of those questions. Kind of very interesting starter off, and we'll see the answers throughout the talk. So the agenda for today, I try to make it funny. I hope it will be. First of all, we'll answer the classic Simon Sinek, my favorite, start with why product sense. Then, right, I want to help you slow your roll quickly. What's that all about? We'll find out. The third item, you shall not pass, right? Gandalf, the Mines of Moria. And we'll wrap it up with something that I hope will help you and will stay with you for the lecture. So wait until the penultimate slide. It's a wonderful word, very easy to pronounce. Why do I care, right, is the question that I wake up asking every day. Product sense became a topic of research for me after trying to pass the process with Meta, right? So that's the classic kind of example. They created it, right? And then successfully passing or failing such interviews at other companies. And of course, successfully passing the one at Glasses USA and embracing them for the recruited product manager. So I think seeing it from both sides is the perspective I hope to bring to you today, not just as the interviewee. And spoiler alert, right? I'm gonna refer you to some much better sources if you want to kind of really dive deep into product sense on a professional level, understand exactly what to do. It's not gonna be a 20-minute talk. I don't wanna create this kind of, I'm gonna tell you how it is. If you want the bits and bytes, I'll refer you to an excellent source if what I'll say today will not be enough. Why product sense? Why I care? That's why I care. Why product sense? Why does it matter? Why did I take it up as a research? Why did I start using this as a product leader? Why do I see great value in it beyond the interview, right? So first of all, this is a tough nut to crack, right? Just accepting that not every question has a answer, a linear path throughout our lives. Think about kindergarten, K to 12, right? Your school years, your university, if you do some other things after the school, between that and the university, whatever it is you do, life has a very linear question answer path. Product sense breaks that mold. It helps you understand that not every question has an answer or one answer, and that's a very interesting proposition. The second thing, funny enough, it actually teaches you how to think. You think about how you think, and that's valuable no matter what you do. The third thing, and that's very valuable, is learn to think under conditions of uncertainty. A lot of times we have to say, well, no, I don't know everything. I need to do this, I need to do, but you do have to react. And in fact, you do in your life make a lot of decisions under conditions of uncertainty. You just do it without great awareness. Product sense helps you be aware of how to think and how to think with uncertainty. And finally, and that's again a valuable skill to have in your life, is learn to back up your arguments with fact. And this is where AI can really help make or break product sense or your product thinking just in general. So, what is product sense? Well, it's not Merriam-Webster, but it could be defined as hypothesis-based, criteria-sorted, market problem, user customer solution analysis under conditions of uncertainty, focused on delivering real user value. And it could have been a heck of a lot longer, trust me, right? So that's the funny way of saying it's not easy to define. And the word sense really has quite a meaning to it, right? What is sense, right? We have our own five senses and maybe a sixth sense if you're Bruce Willis. But for the most part, product sense is kind of a conundrum of a word, right? So let's try to break it down. But this is kind of the best definition I had off the top of my head. This is not kind of an AI answer. This is what I think product sense really is. The second thing I think product sense is kind of a Pareto of problems over solutions. And many great people like Uri Levin help us kind of, make very common the term fall in love with the problem, not the solution, right? Or Product League has a great sticker right on my laptop here. Get attached to users, not to your own ideas. 80-20 problems over solutions. We're very solution oriented in our lives. Question asked, question answered. We're geared towards giving answers. We're geared towards solving problems, especially as men, but not uniquely so. And finally, product sense kind of helps you overcome this, what I'm doing right now, flowing, rambling on, coming up with things on the fly, not really, but helps you be structured, be vocal, and be brief. And that's a skill that we usually do not possess in our daily lives, right? This is my favorite quote. Just in general, my favorite quote. Thomas Sowell is a brilliant American economist, had very tough life, grew up in a very kind of difficult situation, but wrote a lot of books about economy that I'm far from it, reading all of them. But this is the quote of his that I think could be useful to you if you're coming to product sense. There are no solutions, only trade-offs. If you remember this quote, kind of in a nutshell, you got product sense. And then throughout the hours and months of practice, this quote will help anchor you to the reality of what product sense really is. There are no solutions, there are only trade-offs. It's a true quote as the sun will come up tomorrow, right? And rise up from the east and set to the west. There are no solutions, only trade-offs. Excellent quote just to help you think as a product manager should. Moria, have we had any interesting answers to the questions we asked previously? Let's help me if you're seeing it in the chat.
Of course, I'm right here with you. So let's see who is joining us. We have Amanda joining us from New York City. We have Gail Kayam joining us from Tel Aviv saying, "Go Alex, fellow product leaguers. This is great." Chad is here saying, yes, some days are all about the day to day task. Unfortunately, I feel ya. I feel ya. Alicia is here, a product like fan. We're a fan of you as well. And she says, yes, many days, probably many days are all about execution, and I hate it. I want to deal with strategy more often. Yes, absolutely. Thomas is here as no, Nate is here saying Thomas is great. I think it's uh, about your quote. Something here is
Thomas Sowell, yeah, yeah. And I see that kind of, I see John trying to get to Meta, and Chad saying some days are all about the day to day. So I want
yeah.
to kind of say strategy. So product sense is not necessarily strategy, it's just a different way of thinking. Let's talk about this, right? Let's continue on with our lecture. Thank you very much, Maria. Thank you very much, everybody in the chat. Great answers. I'll open it on my side now so I can see it stream alongside. Okay. So try not to think of a pink elephant, right? That's the funny quote that we always have. So this is the actual challenge that you will have to overcome in a product sense interview, right? In a nutshell, you have to avoid giving an answer to a question that you were immediately asked. You were asked a question, you want to give an answer, don't do it. Just don't give an answer to the question. It's really difficult, right? It's like trying to not to think about of this very beautiful pink elephant. And the second thing, right, is answer a question that feels unforced, feels very natural and flowing, but do it in a very, very expected, methodical, and structured way. Both of those things are highly contradictory, right? In our world, you were given a question, you need to give an answer. And you want to go by the structure that you may have read about online, products and structure, but you want to make it seem like you're not following any structure. How do you do that? That's the contradiction. That's the conflict of mind that I had, and many of you will have going on into the product sense interview. But avoiding the urge to answer a question is the most difficult one, and you have to do it, right? So how do you do it? Well, you do it. Well, first of all, let's talk about what broad product sense is, right? It's a principled approach. Principles means there's no specific one absolutely correct implementation of it, but the principle stays the same no matter what, right? And that is the trick. That is the secret behind it. Stick to the principles, and the flavor is up to you. That's kind of the thing, right? If we go and we want to have a magnificent dinner, right? But I'm dead set on having pepperoni pizza, and this place doesn't have it, I'm toast. But if on average I just want to have some kind of cheesy pastry, right? Then I'm golden, right? I'm open to many more opportunities. And this is a beautiful example, right? You want to have dessert, a specific one, or let's just have something sweet, right? You stick to the principle, but you don't get married to the specific implementation. So this is how you should do the interview. Should it be how you do your work? That's the interesting question that I had thinking about product sense. Let's talk about the actual approach. And again, if you want to dive deep into it, there's a great guide. I'll drop it in at the end, right? Or I'll mention it in the end. So stick around for that. Here are the steps, right? First of all, and this is the most important part, I obviously excel at it right now in the lecture, but it's really difficult for the most part. Speak out. Nobody can hear you think. So many candidates that I've been interviewing just lost their trail of thought, stopped talking, locked into their own thought, and completely stopped communicating for long periods of time. That's a no-go. You have to think out loud. Practice laying out a plan, timing your answers, verbalizing your thoughts. As I'm doing this lecture right now, there's a timer streaming right there, right? Show me 70 minutes. I have to understand what to do with that time. You're your own master of ceremony, and speaking out is the most important part, right? If you don't do that, you won't do. And how do you do speaking out, but without answering the question immediately? So the first thing that you do, right, is you think why. You lay out your plan for how you answer it, and you may lay out this plan, you may lay out any other plan, but you have to lay it out. You're going to say, I'm going to talk about thinking why, I'm going to talk about thinking who, where, and when, thinking what, and then thinking how. These are the 5 steps. That's laying out a plan. What is the why? Whatever question, there are many types of product questions you can ask. There's great many guides that can give you examples. But the first thing is, why should this product exist? Why should this company exist? What is the reason? Whether you ask about an existing company, your favorite company, a product that does not exist, the why is the crux of the matter. If you just jump straight to the solution of, oh, this is what I would do, you're jumping to step 4 But without going through 2 and 3, you will completely lose your way. It's like answering, oh, I'm going to use a car. Great. Going where and why and with whom and when are you going to do that? No, I'm just going to get there. So why should this product exist? What problem does it really solve? And again, we're not in a vacuum. Remember, there are no solutions, only trade-off. What solved this problem before this product existed? Your favorite one. What solved this product before this company? Not your favorite one existed. How do people go about solving this problem today? Right? What are the current alternatives? You're not in a vacuum. Remember, there are no solutions, only trade-offs. Start with the why, right? Why should this or why does this product exist, right? If it's an then it's a lot bundled into, but essentially, right? For whom is this? And the context of their usage, right? Who, where, and when. Who's using this? Who needs this problem solved? Where are they when they have this problem? When do they need this solved, right? And you have to break this down by clear contextual criteria. Again, we're not going to dive deep into that, but essentially, one of the most useful things is MISI, mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive. So anything you can break down into some groups that are mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. So they contain all the parts. So you can say, that um, ice cream has a vanilla internal part, a hard chocolate layer, a stick, and if there's something other in the ice cream, you can say, and everything else. That's the wrapper, for example, or there's some flavors inside that you're not familiar with that you can say, most of the parts of the ice cream are the vanilla, the chocolate coating, the stick, the wrapper, and everything else. And that's mutually exclusive because they don't mix, but they're collectively exhaustive. As you can see, I have a hankering for ice cream. That's a beautiful thing. So that's kind of the who, where, and when. Those are your users. Those are your customers, right? Those are not the same if you remember, right? And you think who's gonna need this problem solved, where and when, and you can segment each of them by some criteria, right? We'll talk about the criteria a bit later. Then, if you actually thought about who has this problem, right? When, where, why should this problem be even solved? You can think about the pains that these customers have, right? So this is some product that exists, or there's some new product. What would you like to do for them? Because you can't solve all the problem of everybody, right? And this is kind of the trick of product sense. Everything is kind of a small funnel, right? You think of the why, you narrow down one why. You think of the who, you narrow down one who. You think of the where, you narrow down to where. You think of the when, you narrow down to one. You think of the problems, right, and the solutions, and you keep narrowing it down. And you have these many, many small funnels, right? And everything, I kind of behave like Donald Trump here. Many small funnels, they're great funnels, small funnels. You break them down by clear contextual criteria. We'll talk about them, but every time you go wide, narrow it down, right? You're very familiar with this technique. But this is kind of, you want to answer the what. Immediately when you ask the question, you want to give the solution. Don't do it. And finally, kind of, when you get to the how, right, you can think, okay, this is a solution I'm going to give. What solutions already existed? And again, you break them down by clear contextual criteria and you describe a V1. This is the approach in principle, right? You don't just answer a question, you break it down. This is one approach that you can take, right? The 5 Ws and the H. It's a very common journalist approach. It's a very common product thinking approach. You can use this approach and it may be easy for you to remember. But on principle, right, you go to my definition, right? You do hypothesis-based, criteria sorted, yada, yada, yada. Watch the presentation, skip to the first part. So these are kind of the 5 steps of product sense. This is what product sense is in a nutshell. But what it actually is focusing on human needs, on human behaviors and motivations. And this is where you shine as a product manager. This is what most people cannot do. And I have a very simple trick for you to test this. Take any application, any website, any product, show it to a random person that are not familiar with this product at all. You're not familiar with them. They're not a product manager. Ask them, how would you improve this product? No matter who they are, no matter what they do in life, they will give you a suggestion on how to do it. That's not the difficult part. This thought about the why behind it, for whom is this? When do they need this? Where, how to build this, what to build. That's what makes you shine. That's what you should be focusing on instead of answering the actual question. You know why? Most of the time you're not going to have an answer, right? We started with there is no one answer. There may not be an answer, as you as product manager may have already found out from your companies. If every idea you had was brilliant, all of your companies would be number one in the market. There's only one number one, right? Market caps are big, but they're companies of billions and billions of dollars. They're companies of tens of millions and hundreds of thousands, right? So we not every idea that we have is golden. Now let's talk about the specific contextual criteria, what I mean. And here is another quote that you can remember, right? So you have there are no solutions, only trade-offs. Here's another thing. Everything's a matrix, right? Just like Neo in the Matrix, but not that matrix. It's the 2x2 squares, right? You have many types of matrices that you may know, the Eisenhower matrix, important versus urgent. Everything is a matrix, right? So what are some common ones that you may be familiar with, right? So you may be familiar with some common metrics in your day-to-day life, like I said, urgency versus importance. But every decision that you make in those small funnels fall into that. So, mind the hits. You're familiar maybe with reach, with impact, with frequency, severity, effort, confidence, whatever it is. Don't just make a random choice. Oh, that's why I want to do it, right? That's one of those pitfalls, right? Everything is clearly criteria sorted contextually for that group. So if you're looking at gardeners, right? Then you look at like how professional are they, how frequently they garden, and for what purpose, right? And there's many contextual criteria for each specific field, right? Do you want to have a sit-down ice cream, or do you want to take it with you? Do you want a luxury ice cream? How frequently do you use ice cream? What's the price point, right? The sense, do you take a kilogram or a single bite of ice cream? Single ball of ice cream, right? There's many criteria for anything. If you think about this contextually, you come up with a criteria for segmenting everything from users to the solutions to the problems they're facing, right? So please, ask your questions in the chat. That's great. So we said mind the hits. Now let's talk about the actual why. Why do I want to help you today? After dozens of people through the product sense process, here's what I can tell you. Everything that I gave you today and the reference sources, trust me, if you Google product sense, right, online, you'll find many great sources, right? You can assume that you just need to read it and then do it. You couldn't be more wrong. In fact, just the call I had before, right, listening to somebody who's a product leader at Stripe and said he was preparing for a month for the product sense interview at Stripe. Why? Because they have a particular expectation, company culture, etc. But the most important tip I can give you, please, for the love of God, no matter what you do, don't go into an interview, a product interview or anything, without actually running it through multiple iterations with a human being on the other side, giving you the uncomfortable questions, right? And then seeing how you respond. Practice makes perfect. There's no other way. This is my first lecture with Product League, and I hope to get better by the 10th or the 20th. But obviously, without doing many other talks, many other lectures, I wouldn't be good at this. You cannot be good at a product sense interview. You know why? Because your palms are sweaty. There's vomit on the sweater already. Mom spaghetti, in the eternal words of Marshall Mathers, i.e. Eminem, right? When you get nervous, you behave completely differently. There is no way to test yourself without actually testing yourself. So practice makes perfect. That's the number one tip. People would palm their face, right, in the middle of an interview with me sometimes when they would behave completely differently at a non-stressful interview, let's say an HR interview. When they get to the product sense, it's not how you think it's going to work. So you have to do the prep. Don't go in interview without it unless you're willing to treat your career, your dream job, as the actual practice run. The secret, and this is a sad secret, a lot of companies, after disqualifying you once, will continue disqualifying you for years because you didn't pass it once. This is a fair assumption to make, but also kind of the behind the scenes is the reality. So don't have your dream company be your practice run. No matter what you do, friend, family member, have them stress you, sweat, be nervous. That's good. You need to be nervous. You need to get over it. We already talked about this, but this is the second kind of most common mistake. A question asked, a question answered. We just saw it in the chat. I asked you a couple of questions. Boom, boom, boom. Yes, no, yes, no. It's an instinct. You can't overcome it, right? This is what we all do. It's a habit. This is the second inclination, right? It's a trap. It is essentially a trap, right? So I think I see here kind of Beverly Nelson 1015, how to make an interview more conversational. I think that helps with the nerves. Beverly, you just have to do it with other people. You have to practice this with other people from your current company, your colleagues. There's no other way, right? That's the kind of the going out on many dates to get better at going out on dates, right? You can't overcome the jitters. How to make it more conversational? Have many conversations, right, with people that do make you nervous, but the stakes are lower. They're not the professional stakes. Nothing wrong about this, right? The ice cream. Oh, there's many great things in the chat. Wow, my God. So I think very, very relevant question from Beverly, right? Any ideas on, and Amanda, right? Thank you. How not to get stuck in my head with mutually exclusive part? I think just, again, practice, right? Take anything, right? Make it as absurd as possible and practice MISI, just mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive. It's a dirty trick, right? But once you know, this is the part that I really kind of quote unquote hate. I think that Product Sense giving you this is essentially testing how teachable, how coachable you are as a product manager, and how patient you are, how autodidactic you are, how willing are you to go through the practice rounds. This is why I don't think the trick is by not disclosing all these things, right? Or by telling you that, oh, it's going to be a trap, right? The trick is, can you actually learn from it? Can you adjust? And I'm telling this as a product leader who have hired other product managers. This is what I look for, right? Can you learn this? Because if you can learn something difficult over a period of time that will help not only your career in the interview, but your product work and your life in general, I want to work with you. If you can't learn it, or if you look down upon it, or if you kind of don't practice what you're trying to achieve, why should I put any effort into coaching and mentoring you? When the stakes were the highest, when you wanted to be hired, you didn't put in the effort. Why should you put in the effort now that you're hired? That's the best tip that I can give you. If you don't practice, kind of you get what you put in. That's kind of the reality of it. So how not to get stuck? You just practice, right? And that goes a very long way. And it's better to get 80% of practice done than kind of having the perfect resume or the perfect smile, right? Practice the lower down and dirty, having made the mistakes in previous runs that were lower stakes. And the third most common thing that I see, and by the way, I love this as well. Time is of the essence. I need to say more, right? So you're trying to cram it all in. But the trick is this. There's a RAM shortage right now in the market because of AI, and RAM is jumping twofold in price and probably going to go up much, much more. But your mind also is limited. So this is the sickest tip that I can give. Just get a free Miro, FigJam, whatever account that you want. Open up a whiteboard and just whiteboard everything you say. You practice that part, and that's going to be the best tip that I can give you. Don't just think out loud. Write out loud. Practice talking and writing your thoughts. It can be a mind map. It can be notes. It can be anything that you want. Don't talk. Write, talk. Again, we talked about this. Don't get just stuck in your head and just write, but also don't just talk and not write at all. And you have to balance it out. A product sense interview is about 45 minutes, but this will help your product career regardless of product sense. If you learn how to mind map, if you learn how to lay out your thoughts in a written format, that's one of the most valuable skills in life in general, no matter what you do. This is the biggest mistakes that I've so kind of made. And I'll give you one better. I would come to an interview and I would open a free Miro whiteboard for the candidates. And I would tell them, hey, write down your thoughts. If you don't write them down, you're going to make mistakes. 9 out of 10 or more didn't use this and they failed, right? So even if you give it, but they didn't practice it, they would fail. How do you know the culture of a quest company would answer product sense? That's a very difficult question, John. But for the most part, companies' cultures are open. They're open out there, and there's many different forums that can give you the company's culture and the flavor. Huge corporate like Google or Meta or 50 people startup, right, are going to have very different expectations. And you know what? Just ask them. One of the common pitfalls that I've seen is that people just don't ask enough questions in advance. Hey, what's your expectations? Do you want me to approach it this way, that way? Before the interview itself. This is a great question, John. Thank you very much. So ask more questions, Matt. And again, a common pitfall when I would say, hey, ask me a question if you're not sure, people would get so nervous they would forget to ask questions through the process. Great. Thank you very much. So again, the three, you have to practice it. There's no way around it. It just goes for a product career. Don't answer the question, right? It's a trap. Think. That's the thing that you should do. You should exemplify how you think. And finally, don't just think out loud, write out loud. Now, after dozens of interviews, we talked about some of the common ones, but let me share some funny anecdotes with you as well, right? So one of the beautiful things is that when you get product sense and you apply it, everything changes. I had a product designer from my company come up to me and say, hey, Alex, I have this great, magnificent AI comparison idea. I have this and that that I want to do with AI. By stopping the process for a second, say, hey, what's the problem we're trying to solve, right? For who? When do they have this problem? Where are they when they have this problem, right? We went down a completely different path. And this is not a person for interview. This is one of my best partners at work. And we had a very kind of simple discussion. We laid it out on a Miro whiteboard. We put down a funnel of like, are people even aware that we have this? Forget about the solution, right? So it's a common pitfall for us in the day-to-day job. It's not just a product sense. And we have these discussions daily at our companies or weekly when we rush to the solutions. You have to overcome the same thing because it's so useful in other parts of your life. It's the thinking fast and slow in the immortal book of Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel Prize laureate, right? We're wired to think quickly. We have to stop ourselves. This is kind of the slow your roll quickly. Product sense forces you to think structurally, but you have to do it within 45 minutes. The second part that I want to say, kind of, the common pitfalls, people just don't think about human problems, right? They go straight to the product. They go straight to the features. One of the most common, the first thing that I did when I joined Glass USA is I just sent out a survey to hundreds of thousands of our customers saying, what job, if you haven't guessed so far, Glass USA sells glasses in the USA, right? What job do glasses allow you to do? And I got magnificent questions. Some of them were funny, right? Yeah, it just helped me see. But a lot of them were, hey, I'm a ship captain. It helps me see clearly, through the water. Oh, it helps me do my hobby. It helps me heal, right? I'm a nurse. I have to look at the chart and I have to look at the patient. Or I'm a pastor. I have to read the Bible from the pulpit, but also have to see my congregation, right? So those were the actual users, the actual problem. So for me, it reminded me that, right, it's not just about this feature or that feature. These people really rely on our product to make their lives better, to do something better for somebody else. By connecting to the users and their problems and doing this regularly on my job, I'm using product sense in the truest sense. Asher, where's the line between having someone stress me, which can reduce my confidence, and building the muscle? Asher, it's afuch gute afuch. It's the other way around. Same way that exercise builds up mitochondria, which actually gives your body more energy. Having stressful situation builds up resilience to stressful situations, and that gives you the confidence, right? If you've been through hell and high water, a smooth sailing, right, or a slightly turbulent one, a piece of cake. It's the other way around, and you just have to trust me, right? This is how we build up the resilience and the confidence. People are going to just listen to you. They're going to ask you some difficult questions. Some of them are going to appear very silly, but your lack of self-awareness when you're under stress, not yours, obviously, I'm talking just in general, is something that you have to put yourself to the test and you have to do it many times. And it's the other way around. By going through the stress multiple times, again, we're not talking about life and death situations here, you will build up more resilience. And you kind of answered your own question, but a beautiful question. Thank you very much, Asha. And this is a very common pitfall. It's actually in one of my favorite books, right? But I mentioned the book in the end, maybe. But people who hit the target, hit the wall with the dart, right? They first of all answer the question, and then they explain how they got to the answer. That's just the wrong way of thinking, right? It's the same way as just throwing a random dart at the wall and painting the target around it. And I had this literal case where a candidate came in and said, look, I practiced, I did my AI runs with the chat GPT or whatever, I'm ready. Within the first 5 minutes of the interview, she had 2 features ready and said, okay, now I'm going to explain to you how I got to those conclusions. And it was a very difficult explanation and a very uncomfortable one. Say, look, once you have a target in mind, you will be able to justify how you got to it. But when you start the process in the other way around, same as you have the actual target and you need to hit the bullseye with the dart, we'll know if you missed or not. But if you give the answer first and then you justify it, you'll always have some justification because you already have the final path. So you have to avoid this. Even if you have a prepared feature in mind for your favorite product and you practice this at home, you have to start from the top, the why, the who. You never know what the interviewer is going to ask you, but you cannot start from the end. This is an urge. And I had many people have this urge, have difficulty to overcome this. They were annoyed because they had quote unquote great feature suggestions for their favorite product. Unfortunately, it's just the opposite way of doing this, right? In the same way, right? You would not have the goal be, Alicia, this is a difficult one. Interviewers are very full of themselves in how should I get over it? It's super annoying. Alicia, the secret is, and it's a pet peeve of mine, people prepare to be interviewed. Many interviewers do not prepare to interview. I cannot tell you if will be the case, yes or no. What's the best way to overcome this, right? Just be cordial, right? Be polite. And full of themselves is kind of a different thing. But a lot of times, and I can tell you as an interviewer, when I give somebody a hint, when I tell, hey, what else is there? Why don't you try to give a different answer? I'm screaming, right? In a sense, to tell them, please listen to me. I'm trying to help you. But there's sometimes it just comes across as, oh, you're trying to distract me. You're trying to trick me. The difficult answer is that you just have to practice many interviews to understand, are you actually missing something? Or is this kind of somebody who's unprofessional? And the difficult, and this may be a difficult answer, it's not personal, right? When we're not familiar with the field, it's very difficult for us to judge who's professional and who's amateur because we're just, and again, this is not about you, we're just ignorant of it. So if this is our first product sense interview ever and we just read about this, it's going to be impossible for us to know if the interview is actually trying to help us or not. That's why I'm saying practice makes perfect, right? And it's the most obvious one. Do not go into a product sense interview with an actual company without having somebody do an actual spoken, written, time sensitive, time defined product sense trial run. So we talked about the main reasons. We talked about how to use it. We talked about mistakes. What comes next? Look, I'm going to kind of rapid fire some of these questions and you can answer in the chat, right? But essentially, if you've been discouraged from validating a problem before solving it, you built a pattern in your mind of not exploring the solution, right? And this can happen in your day-to-day job. If this happened to you, you just have to break the pattern. Now, perhaps, and this is the other way around, perhaps you have applied product sense in your work without calling it that, right? Think about that. Give me perhaps some experience in the chat. Have you actually used the 5 W's and the H in your job? Have you actually answered the questions logically, but you didn't call it product sense? It's just what you did. So on the one hand, you have to break a pattern. It's not your fault. You were actually judged as successful in your previous or current place of work by being top of the line as executioner. This has a double meaning. It means that you execute your tasks well, right? You don't. Okay. And here's a question that I want kind of, this is an open question, right? So as a PM, what risks do you see? Right? And we kind of talked about, but maybe you have some other, when you go solution in first. And we had this HIPPO, HIPPO, highest paid person in the room, right? Highest paid person's opinion, right? What's the problem with going solution first and then finding a problem to fit it? And I will give you one better. Is this not what's going on with AI right now when there's a solution in search of a problem, which is perhaps a very valid thing to do if we read Lean, um, Eric Ries's great book, right, about the lean startup. You have a great solution. There's just not a problem for it yet. What's the trade-off, right? What's the good and bad of that? And can you think of ways that these principles that we said, right, focusing on the problem and the solution, asking all these questions before coming up with a reason, where are they relevant in your own life? Which processes of your life are already like that? And if so, how, right? Where are they relevant to you? And which completely aren't? Maybe you already have personal patterns that you treat this way. So look, the sweet spot is your success is not guaranteed in product sense, right? Actual field experience, if you have great experience from a different company that didn't have product sense, but you're just lucky enough to be promoted to a product manager, or experience in adjacent fields, right? They work in the best companies, may get you a foot through the door, right? Your personal charm, great connection. These are all joker cards, and you can strive to do your best, right? Which is what we talked about today. Or you can say, you know what, this sucks. It's unfair. I'm not passing again. You choose to remain. The reality is, it's not all about just passing the product sense interview, and some people have a leg up on you. Okay, so just work harder. The sad reality is that I've experienced this, you've experienced this, right? The reason we're here in Product League is because we are willing to work harder, because we are willing to go the extra mile, to be mentored or to mentor others. So this is kind of the perfect environment to say that. Even if you didn't pass it, doesn't mean that you fail completely. There may be other reasons, but this approach will help you in your work regardless of you passing an interview for a specific company. So the sweet spot for me, right, is having the structured approach, the 5 W's, right, and the H, the why, what, where, when, and of course the how, right, the solution. How would you build this? Practice, 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 and clearly communicate, and go to the whiteboard every time. Don't keep it in your head. Asher had a case where the interviewer asked a question that made you feel like she was being difficult. In hindsight, I understood that she was trying to help you out of a hole you dug. These are the best experience. I can say that some people with whom I've interviewed and failed were my best teachers, as long as they were willing to provide me with some open feedback. Unfortunately, that closed the door to one company or another. But the lesson that I learned, I pass on to you. And again, like I said, look, I was just at a different call. We just talked about some of the questions here were slightly difficult, or I always have, I just leaving you this, look up Key and Peele text message skit, right? It's a funny thing how messages in chat come across with a different tone than what you may imagine, right? But before we go, you may pass the product sense, but if you're not a good fit, if you're not motivated, if you're not easy to get along with, right? There's a child screaming in my background right now, but I'm smiling. It's all good. I'm sharing the knowledge with you. If you aren't a good fit, if you're not motivated, if you don't come to it with the spirit of discovery, you won't pass. It's about the human connection, right? Product sense isn't the end all be all. This is the reality of it. How do you get motivated? Well, I said before, I run, I play some computer games, I relax, whatever helps you get through the day. Thank you very much. I love the chat. Thank you so much. I hope you had fun. Moria, I think my best one so far, if I may say so myself.
If I may join you in this under statement, let's call it this way. Yeah, this was one of your best, and we are just looking forward to having you again here on this stage, because this was an awesome session. And thank you everyone in the audience for opening up to us and sharing from your past experiences. Interviews can be very hard, Product sense interviews can be even harder. So the fact that everyone, stayed with us, and I see some people here that join us that, like, the first minute into the session, and they're still here asking questions. This is amazing, and this is, a testimonial for how good the session was, Alex. So we enjoyed it very, very much, and I hope that you did as well.
Thank you, guys. Thank you,
Amazing.
Bernie.
This is Product League, and this is Product League mentor Alexander Razor. Thank you so much for joining us. By the way, everyone who is watching us right now, we are now kicking off applications for our next batch, the winter 2026. We're looking forward, exactly, Alex, to have you with us again. You should see something in your inbox very, very soon. And we thank everyone who may join us on this ride, becoming the best product manager you can ever be. This is what we are here for. Thank you again, Alex. I had such a great time listening to you, learning from your experience, and getting to know the experiences of the audience. And I can't wait to have you again on our stage.